Good morning, members. I'm going to call Committee of the Whole Section A to order, and we are working on Bill 25, the Haida Nation Recognition Amendment Act 2024, and we're on Clause 2, and I recognize the member for Vancouver-Langara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to come back to 2 points that were made in committee yesterday, and at the time I said to the Minister, when the Minister mentioned what the Premier has said, we had that exchange about what the Premier has said in terms of the quote that the Premier had said in one context was, quote, "The stars are aligned in this moment, and if we can, on both sides, demonstrate that this is successful, then I think it makes it more possible to do it in other places in British Columbia and also in Canada, because it'll provide a bit of a template for everyone about what the world of the possible is." The Minister, of course, yesterday emphasized the words about the world of the possible. We've had several exchanges about that. I would note that in the lead up to that quote that the Minister is referring to, the Premier does say, I think it makes it more possible to do it in other places in British Columbia and also in Canada, because it'll provide a bit of a template. The statement, though, also, in addition, because there the Premier did use the word template, he used it again in the context, in effect, in the interview with Justine Hunter back on April 15th, which the lead-in says, as I've quoted before, Mr. Eby called the agreement historic and said it offers a new model for resolving Aboriginal land claims. She goes on for a direct quote from the Premier, "This agreement won't only raise all boats here in Haida Gwaii, dash, increase opportunity and prosperity for the Haida people and for the whole community and for the whole province, dash, but it will also be an example and another way for nations, not just in British Columbia, but right across Canada, to have their title recognized." So we have the words new model, example, template. This is the reason why we continue to spend the time we've spent, as the Minister well knows, about what this is and the clarity that we want to have in this Bill 25. I would also just comment on the Minister's last response to me about why isn't it that we just don't have in the bill fee simple interests and lands excluded from what is being recognized on Haida title, given the fact that the Haida Nation, and in the ways that the Minister has described, both pointing to the agreement as well as the consent confirmations, both in the agreement and the bill itself, that the Haida Nation consent and confirm that effectively the Haida Nation is confirming and and consenting that the estates in fee simple continue and are confirmed. The Minister, in his second response to me, talked about the fact that, well, the thing is, fee simple lands were included in the Haida's submissions and their claim before the courts, and that if we followed the drafting style or approach that I am suggesting or asking about, then it would be back in front of the courts. The Minister said, ironically, if one were to take the position that the member suggests, I do think it's a suggestion made in good faith, and I appreciate it. Had that approach been taken, I hope the member will realize that we would then have fee simple still before the courts. The whole positioning, though, of course, of what the Haida Nation and the government has been negotiating and trying to get to is an agreement. And that's what the bill does as well, of course, is demonstrate the agreement between the Haida Nation and the province of British Columbia. What I'm asking about is clarity and certainty that currently, right now, the questions that we've raised and had discussions about at length in terms of the opportunity for, or the existence, the coexistence of Aboriginal title with fee simple interests as being an unsettled area of the law, that the province and the Haida Nation are making it very clear by agreement. And that's what the Minister has said. Well, the Haida Nation has also made it very clear, and in the words that the Minister has read out, that they consent to that fee simple interest continuing undisturbed in a way that suggests that it's protected in perpetuity in the words that the minister used. So if that's the case, then why not just separate fee simple interest from the actual definition of Haida title here, given that it is protected in perpetuity? There's an agreement about recognizing fee simple interest. In fact, in the bill itself, in clause 4.3, it says the following interests in and rights to in relation to the land on Haida Gwaii, whether arising before or after the section comes into force, are confirmed and continued in a state in fee simple, and an interest in or right in relation to the land that derives from burdens or otherwise relates to an estate in fee simple. That is confirmed in the bill itself. All I'm asking for is, or asking about, is why in the definition of Haida title in 4.1 sub 1, the recognition of that as described in the Schedule of the Act, why isn't fee simple interest just excluded from that definition? That doesn't mean that we don't still have in the agreement recognition of fee simple interest, or even this language in 4.3. The whole reason is that there is an agreement as to how fee simple interests are to be dealt with. That's what the Haida Nation have said in the agreement and in this bill. I'm asking a question as to why don't we just take that one step further? Wouldn't that make it simpler in terms of any of the underlying concerns and questions I've been raising about how this all fits together? So that's the reason why I had raised it that way. I will just pause here to see if the minister has any further comment on that, but if not, I'm happy to ask my next question.
Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the member for Vancouver-Langara for the question. I want to say by way of beginning today's debate that for those that are watching at home, and I'm told there are a great number of people, particularly in Haida Gwaii, that may wonder where we are in this process. We are on what is called clause-by-clause debate. There are 8 clauses in the bill before us, and of course an agreement. We have spent 15 hours. We have approved Clause 1. Clause 1 adds a new heading to the Haida Nation Recognition Amendment Act. I just wanted to put that on the record for those that are wondering why this debate is taking the form that it is and taking so long. We have indeed completed one clause, which adds a heading. I'm pleased to see in the gallery today Doug White, who is the Premier Special Counsel on Reconciliation. The members started with what has been the subject of several questions, I think, about the nature of what the Premier said in the introduction of this historic bill. I frankly don't think it's helpful to go back and repeat some of the answers I've given on so many occasions thus far. He then proceeds to reiterate his point about the drafting approach that he is proposing, which is different than the process that we have come up with. We, of course, believe that our approach clarifies that fee simple interest will continue and that the best way forward for those fee simple owners on Haida Gwaii is to confirm and continue both in the agreement and the act that their interests are protected in perpetuity. We stand by that drafting approach. We think it is best for all the reasons I tried to articulate yesterday.
Member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in terms of the response of the Minister to my questions relating to a different drafting approach, I appreciate the Minister's response today. This afternoon, we'll have further discussion about that point, but I appreciate what the Minister has said here, including the reference yesterday that he believes and would take that I'm doing this in good faith. In reference to the Minister's first comment, and I appreciate that he did not go on at length about the time we've expended to date, I won't either. Only to say that those of the Haida Nation and those other First Nation leaders across the province, including in this gallery, that they will appreciate, again, as I've said, that there's the underlying agreement between the Haida Nation and the province of British Columbia that was entered into on April 14th. It's not yet in effect. It's not binding yet. There's the Haida Nation Recognition Act itself, which was put in place a year ago through 45 minutes of committee review by ourselves. I did support that recognition at the time with the official opposition and still do. But I do think that it's important to understand the clarity around both the self-governance provisions in Section 1 and the interaction with the title recognition under Section 4 of Bill 25, as I discussed at length yesterday with the Minister. The reference to the Premier, of course, Mr. Chair, was only in response to the Minister raising it, and I just think it's important that we keep in mind as we continue to talk about the use of this new model of recognition of Aboriginal title, that it's understood that what the Premier had said, because that's what we continue to be focused on, and that's the reason why we're taking this amount of time. I just wanted to come back to Section 4.4 in Clause 2. The reference in the Minister made reference to this yesterday as well in terms of the sections of the agreement 4.19 and 4.20. And I would expect that that, of course, reflects itself in 4.4 sub 3 of the bill itself in Clause 2. Can I ask through you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister, why is there a difference in wording other than the fact that it's a bill versus an agreement? But in terms of the actual thrust, the confirmation that the parties during the transition period will continue to use the processes under the protocol, the reconciliation protocol, the Haida-Gwaii Reconciliation Act, which I know the Minister has said and acknowledges was put under the former BC Liberal government, now BC United, all of that. But why is there a difference in terms of how this is expressed in 4.20 and 4.19 and the way that 4.4 sub 3 is expressed?
Minister.
Thank you, and I just want to say through you to the member that when I use the expression recognizing that he is proceeding in good faith, I meant that sincerely. I want the record to note how much I respect the process we're engaged in and the member's participation in it. So lest there be any doubt of that, I need to clarify and confirm that. The member asked a very specific question about the interrelationship between two sections of the agreement, namely 4.19 and 4.20, and how they relate to 4.4 sub 3 of the Act. And I'd say at the outset that the statute, the bill, to no one's surprise, speaks to the statute books, if you will, to the people of British Columbia entirely, as any bill of the legislature would. Whereas the agreement is specific to the parties to the agreement and those affected by the agreement. And so as a general rule, the process is clarified in the agreement, and I'll come to that under 4.19, 420. But the general provisions, including the constitutional recognition, are set out in 4.4. Perhaps I can explain what I mean. The member did not reference, but I think it's important to note that subsection 2 of 4.4 is probably the main event. And as the member will know, the introduction to 4.4 sub 3 uses the phrase for certainty. So it is an effort to clarify what has been said in the preceding clause, which is so key. It says enactments of British Columbia in relation to Crown land continue to apply in relation to land held by the Haida Nation in Aboriginal title. With that assertion, however, the clause goes on to say, for clause 3, for certainty, those enactments that are applied by subsection 2 in relation to land held by the Haida Nation in Aboriginal title are to be administered consistently with that Aboriginal title and Section 35 of the Constitution Act. That's the bold, broad contours of our work. Now let's zero in on what that means specifically to decision-making on Haida Gwaii. That's the burden of the agreement. And that is the process set out in 4.19 and 4.20, which says very clearly, land and resource management decisions under provincial jurisdiction are to be made consistent with Haida Aboriginal title. Nothing new there, that's consistent. But during the transition process, they'll use the parties will use the decision-making processes designed in the derived from the Protocol and the Reconciliation Act, as amended to align with Haida Aboriginal title. So the member is absolutely right. Thanks to the good work done by the parties, the government of British Columbia under the leadership then of the BC Liberal regime, the Haida Gwaii Reconciliation Act was put in force. That has a joint decision-making process that's worked so well. It's unique to Haida Gwaii, yet another reason why this is so unique. And we're going to continue to do that as modified as we go forward with decision-makings on land and decision-making with respect to land and resources on Haida Gwaii. So I think that the general provision for the statute book and the specific process set out in the agreement are aligned very, very nicely in what we are examining. And with that,
Minister.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move the committee rise, report progress, and ask leave to sit again.
Members, you heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. This committee stands adjourned.